This is the fourth and final tutorial of functional harmony, the basics. In this tutorial I'm just going to talk about the relationship between chords, and the idea is that you'll have an idea of how chord sequences work. Obviously it's just the basics, so we're just dealing with diatonic chords, and diatonic means in the key of, so no extra sharps, which we call accidentals, and no accidentals. So in the last tutorial I was talking about how the chords are named tonic and subdominant and dominant and stuff, and one of the strong pulls was between the dominant and the tonic, so that was chord 5 and chord 1, and we also added a seventh, so that became a dominant seventh resolving to chord 1. In this tutorial I'm going to go on to have additional chords. So the chord I'm going to put before chord 5 is chord 2, and that would be a D minor chord if we're in C. So this is the chord 2 going to chord 5 going to chord 1. If we add sevenths, it sounds a little bit more jazzy. The sequence 2-5-1 is probably the most common sequence in a jazz standard, and there's a very strong pull from chord 2 to chord 5. If you look at the relationship between chord 5 and chord 2, notice that they are a fifth apart. So here is the chord, here is the note G, and here's the note D. So D is 5 notes higher than G, and then G is 5 notes higher than C. So I've constantly been talking about how notes a fifth apart have a very strong pull. I talked about the physics of that, I think, in tutorial 2. So going 2, 5, 1 feels very, very natural. And where would you see this sequence in a jazz standard? Probably at the end of a sequence. You could see it at the end of a phrase. You can sometimes start to see chord sequences that don't resolve, so you'll get chord 2 followed by chord 5. So it's just good to be aware of the sounds of those chords, and also the function of those chords. A chord that could precede chord 2 could be a chord that's 5 notes higher than that. So that would be the note A. So you go A, D, G, C. And the effect of that would be, I'm going to play it with raw chords, not nice voicings. They're all in the key of C. I'll play it again with some nicer voicings, better voice leading. So we started on A. And that's a very popular sequence in one of the tunes that I'm going to look at in future tutorials, which is Fly Me to the Moon. I'm going to play the same sequence in F just to show you that how to transpose it. So in the key of F, chord 6 is a D minor chord. Chord 2 is a G minor chord. Chord 5 is a C major chord. If I had the 7th, it's got a C7, and F is chord 1. So that would sound like this. If we then went one step further, we could then go another fifth above that. So I'm going to go back to the key of C, and that would be chord 3. So we go 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And that would sound like this. 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And if I did that in the key of F, chord 3 would be A minor, so it would be A minor, D minor, that's chord 6. 2 is a G minor chord. 5 is a C7 chord. I've actually added a ninth there. F major 7. So 3-6-2-5-1, very common in jazz, very common in lots of other kinds of music as well. In future tutorials, I'd like to talk about how changing some of those chords makes the pull even stronger, and it does take it out of the key, so they therefore would not be diatonic chords, but they kind of fit in that sequence, so it's quite interesting. But at the moment I was just going to stick to the diatonic chords of a key, and the relevance of that in terms of improvising is that when you're reading a tune and looking at the chords and then you improvise, you need to work out what key you're in. So if you can recognise the relationships between chords, then it helps you find the relevant scale or the phrases that you may have learnt to fit that particular key. It's like deciphering a code, and once you've deciphered that and opened that door, you suddenly have a world of where you can improvise much more freely. So it's really, really good practice to understand harmony. And that's the end of Functional Harmony, the Basics, Tutorial 4.